Everyone in Pittsburgh knows that we made steel for decades, and that legacy is still a living part of who we are now. But there aren't a lot of examples left of how all that history was forged. With the Carey blast furnaces, you can literally stand in the shadow of what was once cutting-edge technology. Rivers of Steel offers tours of this important national historic landmark, and they explain how we made iron, introduce you to the people, the workers who made it possible, and share more about the culture that sprang up to support them. Plus, they've got a special spotlight right now on how the Great Migration shaped its workforce. Learn more and book a tour at riversofsteel.com/tours. Hey, Pittsburgh. I don't know about you, but my perfect summer night includes a little art, a little music, and maybe browsing some cute vintage goodies. So I will be checking out the gallery crawl in the Cultural District. It's on Saturday, July 26th from 5:30 to 9 p.m., and it's all totally free. You can swing by new exhibitions at a couple art galleries and shop for gently used clothes and decor at a midsummer market in the backyard at 8th and Penn. There'll be food, there'll be drinks, there'll be live DJs, and if you're up for it, there's even an after party at Wood Street Galleries where Detour will be dropping a new LP. You can find out more about the crawl and snag a ticket to the after party at trustarts.org/crawl. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, nothing says we have our ish together like when the city and county announced they're changing their pool policies in the middle of the summer season. A pair of Pittsburghers showed out on a national stage, and there are some fun new rules about happy hours and canned cocktails in the Commonwealth. Plus, we've got ice cream deals and some new old history about the Liberty Bell. It's July 19th, the Friday News Roundup. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with CityCast producers Mallory Falk and Sophia Lowe. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's been a heavy week of local news. So as a team, I think we've decided to bring you some stuff that feels maybe a little lighter and you might have missed with everything else that was out there.
Right, because it's truly been a week, locally and nationally. Kudos to all the reporters out there covering everything that's happening between calls for Biden to drop out of the presidential race and what's happening now that he's got COVID, the attempted assassination at the Trump rally, and the RNC.
Yeah, and if you want to read more strong local reporting on the assassination attempt and the aftermath here locally, make sure that you're subscribed to our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter.
But Megan, what brought you joy this week?
So I enjoyed watching at least pieces of the All-Star game, the baseball game earlier this week. It is what it sounds like. I'm assuming Jens did not watch that.
Nope.
No, can't say I did.
Yeah, so it's the best players from teams in both leagues, the National League and the American League, all come together and they play each other. So Pittsburgh is in the National League, and we had 2 players get picked this time.
Yeah, I know about Paul Skeens because everyone's always talking about him.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think he was pitching the day that we all went to a home game.
He was not. No, we didn't catch him that day. But pitchers don't play every game. They sort of rotate, so that's normal. He did start at the All-Star game, and he did really well. We also had outfielder Brian Reynolds. It was his second time at the All-Star game. He did not start, but he's played in like every single game for the Pirates this season, and it's far and away one of our best hitters. He's also our highest paid player. He's got a contract right now through 2031. Like, that's so far away from now for a sports player. Forget this, $106 million.
Wow.
What?
And I know there's so much like hubbub around the Pirates not getting paid enough, the players at least. So, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, there was that big story that came out this week about like if we paid the Pirates more, would we get more wins, and like what that would mean to our like economic impact all over the city.
But back to the All-Star game, how did our side do, the National League?
That's right. We lost 5-3.
Pirates bringing our great luck everywhere we go.
Yeah, but who cares? I feel like we won the PR game of the whole thing, you know?
Well, if anyone out there needs Pirates inspiration or just wants some insight into how to have a fun day at PNC Park, you should definitely go back and check out our episode from July 11th. We published it as a food show, but there are so many great tips in there about parking, how to get free stuff, how to get photos with the pierogies after the Great Pierogi Race. It is a must listen if you have a game in your near future.
And spoiler alert, I spent like a month dreaming about the Renegade hot dog and I hated it. But we tried a lot more other food that I think is more delicious if you'd rather eat than watch the game.
Yes. Okay, Mallory, what about you? What has piqued your interest this week?
Yeah, this is not a thing that's bringing me joy, but it is a thing that I've been paying attention to. So if you are planning on heading to the county pools this weekend, just a heads up that there is a new chaperone policy as of this Tuesday. So anyone who is 17 or younger needs to come with an adult, someone who is 21 years or older.
17 years old, that feels kind of old to need a chaperone. Also, a 21-year-old chaperoning a 17-year-old is kind of funny to me. That's like barely a real age difference.
Yeah, and why 21? Like you're an adult at 18. That's ridiculous.
It also kind of reminds me of just like hanging out in the movie theater parking lot for an adult to buy you an R-rated ticket or, hanging out outside the liquor store. Like, I don't know, just I can imagine some teens like sizing up people as they head into the pool and seeing if someone will bring them in. But yeah, I saw reporting in KDK that this policy was originally supposed to apply to people under 16, which, is a minor difference. But then the county ultimately decided to raise the age. Something that's wild to me is that 15-year-olds are old enough to actually be lifeguards at county pools, but I guess not old enough to go unsupervised.
That's a good point.
Yeah, the director of Allegheny Parks told KDK that this policy was put in place to create a safer environment, but didn't point to any specific incidents that triggered the policy.
And there's not a ton of free or cheap spaces for kids and teenagers to hang out, so that kind of sucks. I would have been all over the pool in my teenage years here.
Yeah, I mean, when you're that age, it's just really important to have a safe and fun space you can go to when you're not in school, especially if you're someone who doesn't have access to other summer activities. And, this summer in particular is so hot, it feels extra important to have access to a cool space. So the fact that now public pools are going to be inaccessible to anyone whose, parent or guardian works or who just doesn't have an adult in their life who can take them, it's a bummer.
I mean, that would have been me. Like, I was one of those feral children who got dropped off at the pool when it opened, and then I would stay there all day. I mean, I'm sure we were probably little jerks sometimes, but also, like, one good whistle blow in public would, like, shame us back into good behavior for hours. I just, looking back, like, if chaperones had been required, I genuinely don't know what my parents would have done with me while they were at work. Because, like, I could have stayed at home, but then I'm bored all day, and I'm just more annoying. Like, sending me to the pool, at least I get to burn off some energy.
Right.
Well, besides needing a chaperone, is there anything else people need to be aware of before going to the county pools?
Yeah, so you'll want to bring not just an ID, but I guess a photo ID because people there might ask you for proof of age. Side note, like requiring not just an ID, but a photo ID means even more people might be barred from this if that's not something you have access to.
Yeah.
Parents and guardians can bring all of their children to the pool, but other chaperones can only bring up to 4 kids. And then if for whatever reason a kid gets banned from the pool, then the chaperone gets banned as well.
And it sounds like this is a thing that's been discussed across administration. So one city pool also has its own chaperone policy as of a few weeks ago. The Highland Park pool, a city spokesperson told the Trib that pool staff requested this policy because of, quote, concerns over the number of unaccompanied minors at the pool and in the vicinity of the pool that were causing some concerns about guards' ability to focus, end quote. So that policy applies to kids 15 and under, so slightly different than the county one.
Yeah, I was reading that same Trib article, Megan, and the city person said that there had been some quote-unquote scuffles at the pool, but nothing that rose to the level where, police got called and involved or something like that. So again, I definitely can't speak to what lifeguards at the pool have been experiencing, and obviously it's important for them to be able to do their jobs.
Right.
And I actually somehow still have not made it to the Highland Park pool this summer. My goal truly is this weekend, but so I can't say firsthand what the vibe there has been like. But again, I do think it's a shame that some kids will be losing access to these spaces. One woman was interviewed in that Trib article who sells snacks at a cart, just outside the Highland Park pool.
Yeah.
And she said that there are hardly any kids there anymore compared to before the chaperone policy went into effect.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Most of them probably don't have adults that can take them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've only been to Bloomfield Beach, which I know is a little more adult-oriented, but there's definitely a ton of kids on the weekend, and I've never seen any rowdiness that got way out of hand or anything that, absolutely required parents to be around.
Yeah, typically my pools are Riverview, a little bit of Sue Murray, Southside. There's kids running around everywhere, but that's part of the vibe of the pool is to watch kids have their best time while, all the adults have found corners with shade or grass or to get as far away from the mayhem as possible. But that's what the pool is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I am curious about, what enforcement of this policy will look like both at the county pools and the Highland Park pool. And then just want to keep an eye on this and see if it ends up extending to more pools in the future.
Do yins ever have a mild panic over everyone who has access to your personal information? Your social security number, your address, your health and financial records. So much important data. I'm not trying to live off the grid, but still, does everyone need my mother's maiden name? Every day, data brokers collect and sell this information to third parties, and then that gets used by scammers, by strangers, even by insurance companies and banks to target you. My strategy has mostly just been to live in denial and pretend that this isn't happening, but then I learned about Incogni. That's INCOGNI. It scrubs your personal information from the web, and it is very simple to use. It only takes 3 minutes to set up, and it tackles more than 180 data brokers and people search sites. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you want to stop stressing about random scammers getting their hands on all of your personal data, sign up for Incogni today. You can use code CITYCAST, that's all one word, for 55% off the annual plan at incogni.com. That's INCOGNI.com.
Okay, Sophia, last up, what have you been reading about this week?
Well, I didn't know that bars and restaurants in Pennsylvania had a cap on how often they could do happy hour deals. That blew my mind.
I didn't either. If you guys listen a lot, you probably know that the state budget just got passed.
Hooray! Only 2 weeks late.
Only 2 weeks late. And a couple days later, Governor Shapiro signs a couple of new laws governing alcohol in Pennsylvania. And one of them includes happy hours, which, again, I'm with you, Sophia. I had no idea, we were limiting the number of happy hour, time limit here in Pennsylvania. That's wild.
I know. So statewide, there was a 14-hour cap, so no more than 14 hours of sales on booze per week. But starting in September, that new cap is going to be 24 hours, so up to 4 hours of happy hour promos per day. I love that for me because I love deals.
Yeah, and with all the world news going on that we mentioned up top, I think Pennsylvanians need this little win. I know drinking is not the healthiest way to respond to the world being on fire, but I won't pretend that I don't love a good escape every now and then, and I'm not excited about more happy hour deals on the horizon.
I mean, they could give us happy hour deals on snacks or mocktails. I know that the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board wouldn't actually be involved in those happy hours, but I'm just encouraging all happy hours all the time.
More deals.
Jens will be shocked to hear I looked this bill up, or the couple of bills. An Allegheny County legislator introduced the one. Of course, it's a Pittsburgher.
Of course. And another thing I just learned, you can't have alcohol specials in Pennsylvania after midnight. So pay full price or go home.
Although I was looking at this bill, and it looks like they've added language to adjust it for New Year's Eve. So now they can technically still have alcohol specials after
one night
midnight.
only.
Yeah. I thought it was a really funny adjustment. If I'm reading this right, bills are so complicated.
Now I'm curious if there's some big New Year's Eve lobby that got involved.
Right. There's actually a bunch of interesting stuff in this bill turned law. If you feel like looking it up, it's House Bill 829. And you can tell what's new because it's all underlined in there. So there's going to be a new spirits industry promotional board. They'll be in charge of $1 million in annual grants through the State Department of Agriculture. And those grants are for, quote, the purpose of increasing the production of Pennsylvania-made spirits and enhancing the Pennsylvania distilled spirits industry through promotion, marketing, and research-based programs and projects, end quote. So I think that they're talking at least tangentially about our G licenses there.
Okay.
Yeah, which we learned about from our friends at Jackworth Ginger Beer. It's a thing you can get now if you agree to make and or sell products that were exclusively made in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should do a whole show on this at some point, but booze, I'm sure everyone listening to this knows, is extremely regulated in Pennsylvania, and that extends to our liquor licenses. So the state doesn't just like make new ones. There are a finite number, and they are bought and sold like lamps at an estate sale. It's wild.
If those lamps cost thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of taxi medallions, that whole system.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they cost different amounts of money. Anyway, G licenses are less strict because you don't have the whole world of alcohol to consider. All your products have to, be derived from Pennsylvania.
And then one more thing in the new law, outdoor dining is here to stay. It's not just a pandemic thing. So restaurants and bars will have to renew their licenses annually, but it adds more specific language about what qualifies and how to renew your license. So they're not automatically temporary anymore.
Yeah, and then we mentioned at the top that the governor actually signed two things. So the other one is Senate Bill 688. I like knowing bill numbers because then you can actually go read it for yourself if you want. But that'll allow canned cocktails in grocery stores. So until now, you had to get your High Noons or your boozy Topo Chicos exclusively at state stores. But pretty soon, you're going to be able to snag them in your local Giant Eagle.
That is a win, but I will not rest until I see soju in 6-packs here. I miss H-Mart soju prices. They are too expensive by the bottle at a fine wine.
1,000%. Well, before we go, what will each of you be thinking about going into the weekend? Sophia, you kick us off.
So National Ice Cream Day is this Sunday, July 21st. So get your favorite Pittsburgh ice cream to celebrate. I think right now mine is Leona's ice cream sandwiches.
Yes.
They're so good.
And if you're looking for a deal, Brewster's is doing double points for anyone who's enrolled in their rewards program, and this applies to purchases Friday through Sunday. And Brewster's is also running a sweepstakes where the winner gets free ice cream for 1 year.
Ooh.
So check out their website if that's intriguing to you.
I love Brewster's. There's one very close to a frequent stop of mine, and they are consistently excellent. Mallory, what about you?
So if you tuned into the show last week, you heard my very strong feelings about the new Pennsylvania license plate.
Yes.
Reminder, it is red, white, and blue with an image of the Liberty Bell and says, "Let freedom ring." I'm not a fan of the design aesthetic overall, and I also think it's just way too Philly-centric. I am not alone in that reaction.
You are not, but I still think that perhaps those of you that are upset are maybe blowing it out of proportion. I feel like liberty is for everybody.
Sure, but also the Liberty Bell is probably Philly's most iconic symbol. We don't need to relitigate this entire argument. But, one of the things I took issue with was switching from what I called like the state-coded colors of blue and yellow to colors that represent the Phillies and the 76ers. But now I feel like a fool because after that episode ran, a friend texted and reminded me that blue and yellow are also Philly colors. They are the colors of the city flag.
I don't think I knew that, but I feel like maybe you should have, Mallory. Like, you grew up in Pennsylvania and you lived in Philly.
In Mallory's defense, at least for maybe before you were living there, I lived about 40 minutes away from Philly when I was younger and would be in the city like a few times a year. Never noticed their colors were blue and yellow.
Are they not like really loud and proud about their blue and yellow the way Pittsburgh is? They're black and gold.
Well, Pittsburgh's the only city where black and gold is like the flag
Everything.
And all of the sports team colors. So it's not quite as ubiquitous in Philly. And I actually now remember learning, but then I guess quickly forgetting, that the whole reason Philly adopted a blue and yellow flag was to commemorate the fact that it was colonized by Sweden. I don't think that's something that a lot of Philadelphians still claim or pay much attention to. So
that's a brand new one for me. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I'm not sure how connected they feel to the blue and yellow, but thanks, Steve, for ruining my day and reminding me that Philly gets everything.
I mean, I appreciate you, Steve. Thank you.
But then, on the flip side, I also got a reminder that the Liberty Bell actually has a pretty badass history. Friend of the pod, Virginia Montanez, dedicated part of her fantastic Substack to the new plate and talked about how it actually got its name from abolitionists.
Oh, wait, really? I didn't know this.
Yeah, so this inspired me to go back and read this history that either I had never learned or else maybe I just forgot from elementary school. But so I learned or relearned that the inscription on the bell says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof," which then became a rallying cry for abolitionists. So when the bell was first created, it was just known as the State House Bell. And the first time it got called the Liberty Bell was actually in an abolitionist newspaper. And then later the bell also became a symbol for suffragists. So some Pennsylvania suffragists actually commissioned a replica that they took around the state while they advocated for women's right to vote. Thanks to the National Park Service site for all of this information. I was really fascinated to learn this.
So does any of this change your mind then? Are you more pro Liberty Bell license plate now?
Well, I still stand by the general sentiment that when you see the Liberty Bell, you do think of Philly. And I still don't just love the graphic design. I don't think it's a very visually striking plate. But learning or re-remembering that the bell has this really powerful history, even beyond the Revolutionary War, and also that it represents these really powerful ideals and movements, does make me feel a little less salty about the choice, if for nothing else than that it prompted this historical deep dive.
I love it.
I'm glad, because then you'll be less angry when you see all these plates in a couple years.
Yeah.
And lastly, you, Megan, what's on your mind?
Mine's short and sweet. I will be thinking about fireflies because they are all over my neighborhood right now. And I actually had no idea that they were endangered here.
No, they're one of the bugs I like.
They're probably the only bug most of us like. There's a piece up about it on our website. I will not give it all away, but as bugs go, they are, mostly cute. They make summer evenings feel like magic. And there is stuff we can do to make sure that they are here for years to come. So you can find all of that at pittsburgh.citycast.fm.
Yes, go learn more about our state bug.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you haven't yet, please consider a membership to CityCast. It gets you ad-free listening, plus you can be secure in the knowledge that you are helping support us, helping us keep this podcast going, and the Hey Pittsburgh newsletter. We put a lot of heart into it, and we would really, really love your support. You can find more at membership.citycast.fm/Pittsburgh. Our music is by Benji. Mallory Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe, Elizabeth Kama, and Francisco Kilgore produced the show. Lane Fisher is writing our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter, and Will Fulton helped us edit it. I'm your host, Megan Harris. We'll be back on Monday with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.
During my time in Texas, the grocery store sold beer, but on Sundays, because it was the Lord's Day, if you showed up before noon, there was a little cover that they slid over the beer so that you and I guess God couldn't see it.
Yeah, that's what they did in Tennessee where I grew up too. Yeah.